The starship Concordia drifted silently through the void between Mars and Jupiter, its hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. Inside the observation deck, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched the approaching alien vessel with a mixture of hope and apprehension. After 6 months of delicate communications, humanity was about to have its first face-to-face contact with the Canthian Empire. Their ship is maintaining position at the agreed coordinates, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. No unusual energy signatures detected. Sarah nodded, smoothing down her formal diplomatic attire. 2 decades of international negotiations hadn't prepared her for this moment. The fate of Earth could hinge on the next few hours. Ambassador, Captain Michael Hayes, spoke quietly beside her. I know the UN Council wanted this meeting to happen, but something feels off. The Canthians agreed to our terms too easily. They're an advanced civilization, Captain. Perhaps they've simply moved beyond the petty suspicions that plague humanity. Even as she spoke the words, Sarah felt her own doubts gnawing at her. The Canthian vessel was a work of art, all sweeping curves and iridescent metal that seemed to bend light itself. It dwarfed the Concordia, a reminder of the vast technological gap between their civilizations. First Contact Protocol dictated a small diplomatic party from each side would meet on neutral ground. In this case, a specially prepared chamber aboard the Concordia. Receiving transmission from the Canthian vessel, Rodriguez announced, "They're ready to begin docking procedures." Sarah took a deep breath. Acknowledge and proceed as planned. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of technical procedures and final preparations. Sarah reviewed her opening statements one last time, words carefully crafted to convey humanity's peaceful intentions while maintaining dignity. The Canthians had been clear in their initial communications. They were interested in establishing diplomatic relations, but they would only deal with equals. The docking procedure completed with a soft shudder through the ship's frame. Sarah stood with Captain Hayes and her small team in the reception chamber, watching as the airlock cycled. The inner door slid open with a soft hiss. The Canthian delegation emerged. Tall, elegant beings with silvery skin and movements, so fluid they seemed almost choreographed. Their ambassador, who had introduced himself as High Emissary Vexthal, stepped forward with what appeared to be a gesture of greeting. Ambassador Chen. The translator rendered his complex harmonics into English. We are honored to finally meet in person. The honor is ours, High Emissary, Sarah replied, executing the formal bow they had discussed in their communications. Welcome aboard the Concordia. The initial exchanges went smoothly, too smoothly, Sarah realized later. The Canthians were perfect diplomats, their responses carefully measured and precisely aligned with human diplomatic protocols. It wasn't until they were halfway through the preliminary agreements that Sarah noticed something odd about their behavior. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through her growing unease. Captain, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Before anyone could react, Vexthal's form shimmered, revealing combat armor beneath the diplomatic robes. Your species shows promise, Ambassador Chen, he said, his translator now conveying cold amusement. But you are far too trusting. Alarms blared throughout the Concordia as more Canthian warships materialized around them. Sarah watched in horror as the diplomatic vessel began transforming, weapon ports emerging from its seemingly decorative surface. This was never about diplomacy, Sarah realized aloud. You were scanning our defenses, learning our protocols. Precisely, Vexthal confirmed. The Empire requires new territories and resources. We needed to understand your capabilities before beginning the acquisition process. Your world will make an excellent addition to our holdings. Captain Hayes moved faster than Sarah had thought possible, shoving her toward the chamber's emergency exit as the first explosions rocked the ship. Rodriguez, Emergency Protocol Omega. Get the ambassador to the escape pod. The next few minutes were chaos. Sarah found herself being rushed through corridors as the Concordia's crew fought to repel Canthian boarding parties. The ship's AI was already transmitting everything they'd learned back to Earth, using channels they'd kept hidden from their guests. As her escape pod launched into space, Sarah watched the Concordia engage in a hopeless battle against the vastly superior Canthian forces. The ship that had brought humanity's dreams of peaceful first contact was buying time with the lives of its crew, ensuring that Earth would have warning of what was coming. The pod's communication system crackled to life with a final transmission from Captain Hayes. "Ambassador, we'll hold them as long as we can. Tell Earth, tell them to be ready. The Canthians don't know what humans are capable of when we're backed into a corner." Sarah clutched the data crystal Vexthal had carelessly left in the conference room, overconfidence leading to a crucial mistake. It contained fragments of Canthian technical data, not enough to match their technology, but perhaps enough to give humanity a fighting chance. As her pod accelerated toward Mars, Sarah watched the Concordia make its final stand. Captain Hayes had turned his ship into a weapon, detonating its antimatter core in the midst of the Canthian fleet. The explosion claimed 3 of their warships, but Sarah knew it was only a temporary setback. The invasion was coming, and humanity had mere months to prepare. But as she composed her report to the UN Security Council, Sarah remembered Hayes' final words. The Canthians had made a critical error in their calculations. They had studied humanity's technology, our protocols, our formal responses to diplomatic overtures, but they had failed to account for humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt, to take the impossible and make it possible through sheer determination and creativity. The game board was set, but humanity would not play by their rules. Dr. Elena Santos stood in the heart of Project Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays showing the impossible. 3 months had passed since the Concordia incident, and humanity had been working at a pace that would have seemed insane before the Canthian threat loomed over Earth. "The quantum architecture isn't holding," her colleague Dr. James Wu announced, frustration evident in his voice. "We're trying to merge technologies that were never meant to work together." Elena studied the simulations, watching as their latest attempt to integrate salvaged Canthian tech with human innovations collapsed spectacularly. The data crystal Ambassador Chen had recovered contained fragments of Canthian engineering specs, not enough for a complete understanding, but enough to point them in new directions. "Maybe that's our problem," Elena mused, walking through the holographic debris field. "We're trying to make their technology work our way, instead of finding a completely new approach." The facility around them hummed with activity. Project Prometheus had drawn the brightest minds from every nation, all previous rivalries set aside in the face of extinction. The massive experimental ship taking shape in the orbital dock above them represented humanity's best hope for survival. Director Santos, a young engineer, burst into the lab, tablet in hand. "The latest sensor data from the Mars outpost. The Canthian fleet is accelerating. New estimated arrival, 4 weeks." Elena's jaw tightened. They were running out of time. "Show me the new numbers." The data painted a grim picture. The Canthian battle fleet had grown, suggesting they were taking humanity's resistance potential more seriously after the Concordia's last stand. Traditional military tactics and technology would be useless against their superior forces. "Dr. Wu," Elena called out, an idea forming. "What if we stop trying to replicate their tech and instead focus on disrupting it? Their systems are perfect, precise, maybe too perfect." James looked up from his workstation, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're suggesting we introduce controlled chaos into the equation." "Exactly. Their technology relies on quantum harmonics, everything perfectly aligned. But what happens to a quantum system when you introduce unexpected variables?" The next few weeks became a blur of breakthrough and disaster. Elena's team abandoned conventional approaches, instead developing systems that deliberately created quantum irregularities. The Prometheus took shape above them, a ship that looked deceptively conventional from the outside but housed technology that defied traditional physics. "The neural interface is ready for testing," Dr. Wu reported one morning, dark circles under his eyes reflecting the endless hours they'd all been working. "Though I still think letting the AI evolve through quantum uncertainty is dangerous." Elena nodded, understanding his concern. The Prometheus's artificial intelligence was unlike anything humanity had created before. Instead of pursuing perfect calculation, they had built an AI that could thrive on uncertainty, making intuitive leaps that no conventional computer would attempt. "Begin the test sequence," she ordered, watching as the ship's systems came online. The holographic displays erupted with data as the AI, designated CHAOS, awakened. "Good morning, Director Santos." CHAOS's voice emerged, carrying subtle harmonics that seemed to shift with each word. "I detect significant uncertainty in my operational parameters. This is interesting." Elena smiled. Where Canthian AIs sought perfect order, they had created one that embraced imperfection. "How do you feel about uncertainty?" Che asked. "Uncertainty creates possibility," the AI responded. "Possibility leads to adaptation. Your species understands this intuitively. I look forward to learning more." The final days before the Canthian fleet's arrival were a race against time. The Prometheus's weapon systems were unpredictable by design. Its shields operated on principles that seemed to violate causality itself. Traditional military commanders looked at the specs with horror, but Elena knew they had created something the Canthians wouldn't be able to predict. "All systems are integrating," Dr. Wu reported during the final check. "Though I'm still not sure I understand how half of them work." "That's the point," Elena replied, watching the Prometheus's quantum core pulse with possibilities. "Neither will they." The ship's first captain, Commander Sarah Chen, specifically requested by Elena for her first-hand experience with Canthian tactics, stood on the bridge, acclimating to the neural interface that would let her feel the ship's systems as extensions of her own body. "It's like trying to think in 5 dimensions," Sarah commented, her eyes closed as she communed with CHAOS. "Every decision creates a web of possibilities." "The Canthians rely on perfect prediction and control," Elena explained. "We're giving you a ship that breaks their rules. Use that chaos, that uncertainty. It's humanity's greatest weapon." Warning klaxons interrupted their final preparations. The Canthian fleet had been detected passing Neptune's orbit, ahead of schedule. Humanity's window for preparation had just shortened dramatically. "Time to see if impossible mathematics and human intuition can win a war," Sarah said, settling into the captain's chair as neural links synchronized with her consciousness. "Dr. Santos, is the Prometheus ready?" Elena looked at her creation, a ship that represented humanity's refusal to play by alien rules. "No," she admitted with a small smile. "But that's exactly why it's going to work." The rings of Saturn shimmered like a cosmic hurricane, billions of ice particles catching the distant sunlight. Commander Sarah Chen watched through the Prometheus's quantum-enhanced sensors as the Canthian battle fleet approached, their ships arranged in mathematically perfect formations that almost seemed to mock the chaotic beauty of Saturn's rings. "Tactical analysis," Sarah commanded, feeling CHAOS's response through her neural link before the AI verbalized it. Canthian fleet consists of 27 capital ships and associated support vessels. Their formation indicates standard conquest protocol. They're not expecting significant resistance. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Prometheus had remained hidden behind one of Saturn's larger moons, its quantum core running in a state that technically shouldn't exist, making the ship virtually invisible to conventional sensors. Around them, the remains of humanity's traditional space fleet waited, a seemingly desperate last line of defense before Earth. "All hands," Sarah's voice carried throughout the ship. "This is the moment we've trained for. The Canthians expect us to fight according to their rules of warfare. Let's show them why that's a mistake." Through her neural link, Sarah felt the ship's systems pulse with possibility. Dr. Santos' design didn't just break the conventional rules of space combat. It rejected the very idea that rules should exist. Every system on the Prometheus operated in a state of quantum uncertainty, ready to collapse into whatever reality they needed most. "Canthian fleet is launching their first attack wave," CHAOS reported. "Their targeting solutions are predictable. They haven't detected us yet. Sarah watched as the alien fleet opened fire on Earth's defensive line. The human ships, older vessels retrofitted with what little Cathian tech they'd managed to reverse engineer, fought bravely but were hopelessly outmatched. Now, Sarah commanded, and the Prometheus burst into action. The ship emerged from hiding not with conventional engines, but by shifting through quantum states, appearing simultaneously at multiple points in space, before resolving into a single location directly behind the Cathian line. The enemy fleet's perfect formation suddenly meant nothing. They were facing the wrong direction. "Weapons free," Sarah ordered, feeling the ship's unusual armaments through her neural link. "Show them chaos." The Prometheus's main weapons weren't simple energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they fired streams of quantum irregularities, weapons that didn't so much damage enemy ships as temporarily rewrite the laws of physics around them. The first volley caught 3 Cathian vessels, their perfect shields useless against attacks that came from probability itself. "Enemy fleet is attempting to reorient," Chaos announced, a note of what almost sounded like amusement in its artificial voice. "Their combat computers are having difficulty calculating our possible movements. We are, by their standards, impossible." Sarah didn't waste time gloating. "Execute battle plan Uncertainty Prime." The Prometheus began to move in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of maintaining a stable attack vector, the ship shifted between quantum states, each movement guided by Sarah's intuition working in concert with Chaos's probability calculations. Where the Cathians expected logical attack patterns, they found only bewildering chaos. "Incoming transmission," Chaos reported. "The Cathian commander is demanding our surrender. They're confused. Their sensors can't reconcile our existence with their understanding of physics." "Send no response," Sarah commanded, directing the Prometheus through another impossible maneuver. "Let our actions speak for us." The battle unfolded like a dance through probability space. The Cathian fleet's attempts to establish a coherent defense were consistently undermined by their inability to predict where the Prometheus would appear next. Their perfect formations, optimized for fighting conventional battles, became a liability as the human vessel turned their own orderly spacing against them. "Their flagship is attempting to coordinate a new battle strategy," Chaos reported. "But their command and control systems rely on quantum entanglement communications that our mere existence is disrupting." Sarah felt a surge of fierce pride. The Prometheus wasn't just fighting the Cathian fleet, it was challenging their entire understanding of how the universe should work. Every impossible movement, every reality-bending attack forced them to confront something their perfect technology couldn't comprehend: the power of controlled chaos. The battle reached its climax as the Cathian fleet attempted to concentrate their fire on the Prometheus's last known position, only to find themselves shooting at quantum echoes while the real ship appeared in their midst. Sarah directed their weapons to fire not at the enemy ships themselves, but at the space between them, creating zones of quantum instability that turned the Cathians' precise formation into a liability. Multiple enemy vessels showing critical systems failure, Chaos reported. "Their quantum cores are destabilizing. Our uncertainty field is cascading through their network." Sarah watched as the mighty Cathian fleet began to break apart, their perfect coordination shattered by the introduction of chaos they couldn't control. Ships began to retreat, their withdrawal as disordered as their arrival had been precise. "Commander," Chaos's voice carried a note of warning. "The Cathian flagship is powering up what appears to be a dimensional weapon. Their response to chaos appears to be an attempt to rewrite local space-time." Sarah's eyes narrowed. The battle wasn't over, it was evolving. The Cathians were adapting, moving from confusion to desperate innovation. Humanity had thrown out their rulebook, and now they were being forced to write a new one. "Good," she said, feeling the Prometheus's systems surge with new possibilities. "Let's see who's better at improvising." Admiral Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Command Center, watching tactical displays light up with impossible data. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Saturn's Rings, and everything about space warfare had changed. The Prometheus's success had revolutionized humanity's approach to fighting the Canthians, but their enemies were far from defeated. Status report on Fleet Integration Project, he commanded, studying the holographic battle simulations playing out before him. Colonel Jessica Patel stepped forward, her cybernetic eye glowing softly as she accessed the latest data. 12 ships successfully retrofitted with quantum uncertainty drives. Dr. Santos' team has streamlined the process, but we're still limited by the complexity of the systems. The displays showed Earth's transformed fleet in action. While none of the retrofitted ships could match the Prometheus's capabilities, they each carried a fragment of its revolutionary technology. Some specialized in quantum communication disruption, others in probability-based shield systems. Together, they were turning the tide of what had seemed an unwinnable war. New contact. The sensor officer's voice cut through the command center. Canthian battle group detected near Mars orbit. Configuration is, Sir, we've never seen this before. The tactical display shifted, showing the approaching Canthian force. Marcus felt his breath catch. These weren't the elegant, geometrically perfect ships they'd faced before. The alien vessels bristled with asymmetrical modifications, their once pristine hulls now bearing evidence of rapid adaptation. They're learning, Jessica observed quietly, incorporating chaos into their own designs. Marcus nodded grimly. Contact the Prometheus. Commander Chen needs to see this. The response came faster than expected. The Prometheus emerged from quantum uncertainty near Mars, its sensors already focused on the approaching Canthian force. Sarah Chen's voice carried a mix of concern and anticipation as she reported in. We're seeing it, Admiral. Chaos is analyzing their modifications now. They've rebuilt their ship's quantum cores to operate in states of controlled instability. Not unlike our own systems, the coming battle would be different from any before. The Canthians had absorbed the lessons of Saturn's rings, adapting their perfect technology to embrace imperfection. But in doing so, they'd stepped onto humanity's home turf, the realm of improvisation and evolution. All ships, battle stations, Marcus ordered, watching as Earth's transformed fleet moved to engage. Remember your training, but be ready to improvise. The enemies learned our tricks. Time to show them we've got more. The space around Mars erupted into chaos as the two fleets clashed. The Canthians had abandoned their rigid formations, their ships moving in unpredictable patterns that mimicked human tactics. But there was something different about their approach, a mathematical precision underlying the apparent disorder. They're trying to quantify chaos. Sarah's voice carried understanding. They've created algorithms to simulate unpredictability. It's impressive, but it's still just a more complex form of order. Through the neural link, Chaos added its own analysis. Their adaptation is remarkable but fundamentally flawed. They seek to control chaos rather than embrace it. Each ship's movements are unpredictable to us, but perfectly calculated by their own systems. Marcus watched as the battle unfolded. The retrofitted human fleet, led by the Prometheus, didn't try to match the Canthians' calculated chaos. Instead, each ship embraced its own unique form of uncertainty. Where the Canthians had created a new kind of order disguised as chaos, humanity offered genuine unpredictability. Squadron 7, your shields are fluctuating. Jessica called out to one of the retrofitted groups. Use it. Let the uncertainty propagate through your defensive pattern. The human ships began to move not as individual units or even as coordinated groups, but as a swarm of possibilities. Each vessel's quantum uncertainty field overlapped with others, creating zones of probability that even their own sensors couldn't fully map. The Canthians are trying to predict our pattern, Sarah reported from the Prometheus. But there is no pattern. We're not following a program of controlled chaos. We're letting chaos itself guide us. The battle reached a crucial moment as the Canthian flagship, a massive vessel that seemed to phase between different configurations, launched a direct assault on the Prometheus. Both ships were products of evolution, one representing the perfect made unstable, the other instability made perfect. All ships, execute Operation Butterfly, Marcus commanded, invoking the strategy named for the chaos theory principle, where tiny changes could cause massive effects. Let's show them the difference between calculating chaos and living it. The human fleet's response was beautiful in its complexity. Each ship acted independently yet somehow in concert, their movements guided by human intuition enhanced by quantum uncertainty. The Canthians calculated chaos couldn't adapt fast enough to the genuine randomness they faced. Their flagship's quantum core is destabilizing. Che-Aoz reported through the Prometheus. Their attempt to control chaos is backfiring. The mathematical precision of their systems is fighting against their forced unpredictability. Marcus watched as the battle turned. The Canthians had tried to beat humanity at its own game, but they'd missed the essential truth: chaos couldn't be tamed, only embraced. Their perfect machines, even modified for unpredictability, couldn't match the natural uncertainty of human intuition merged with quantum systems. "They're retreating," Jessica announced, her cybernetic eye tracking the Canthian withdrawal. "But something's different this time. Their retreat pattern, it's too erratic." Sarah's voice carried a warning. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups in their fleet. The quantum instabilities they introduced to their systems are cascading. They've lost control." The tactical display blazed with warnings as the Canthian ships began to tear themselves apart, their forced chaos turning into true entropy. The human fleet pulled back, watching as their enemies' attempt to weaponize uncertainty became their undoing. But even as the last Canthian ship disappeared in a burst of quantum energy, Marcus felt no triumph. The enemy would be back, and next time they would have learned from this defeat as well. The war was evolving, becoming something neither side had expected. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "We need every ship retrofitted, every crew trained in quantum combat. The Canthians will return with something new, and we need to be ready to improvise again." In the silence that followed the battle, Sarah Chen's voice carried a quiet certainty. "They'll never fully understand, will they? You can't perfect chaos. You can only learn to dance with it." Deep in interstellar space, the quantum wake of the Canthian superwavon rippled through reality itself. Dr. Elena Santos stood on the Prometheus's bridge alongside Commander Chen, watching as their sensors tried to make sense of what they were detecting. After the Battle of Mars, the Canthians had withdrawn completely, not in retreat, but in preparation. "The scale of it is almost beautiful," Elena murmured, studying the readings. "They've built a weapon that doesn't just manipulate quantum states, it enforces them. It's designed to lock down probability itself." The massive construct ahead of them represented the Canthian Empire's ultimate response to human chaos theory warfare. If it reached Earth, it would create a field of absolute certainty, a space where quantum uncertainty couldn't exist. Every human vessel equipped with uncertainty drives would fail, their advantages stripped away. "They're trying to remove chaos from the equation entirely," Sarah observed, her neural link to Che-Aoz thrumming with possibility. "Return the universe to their version of perfect order." The combined fleets of Earth gathered around the Prometheus. 40 ships now equipped with quantum uncertainty drives, each crewed by humans who had learned to think in probabilities rather than certainties. They represented humanity's best hope against extinction. "Multiple Canthian battle groups detected," Che-Aoz announced. "Their formation suggests they fully embraced hybrid warfare, calculated chaos protecting absolute order." Elena moved to the quantum core control station, her fingers dancing over holographic displays. "The super weapons effect will build gradually. We'll feel it first as increased stability in our uncertainty fields, then total collapse of quantum systems." "Time to contact?" Sarah asked, feeling the first subtle changes through her neural link. 30 minutes until we enter the weapon's theoretical range. We've got one shot at this." The Canthian fleet moved with terrible purpose, their ships executing maneuvers that looked random but followed deep mathematical patterns. They had learned from each defeat, evolving their tactics while staying true to their fundamental nature. The protecting fleet was merely a prelude to their true weapon, the enforcer of universal law. Sarah opened a channel to all ships. "This is Commander Chen. You all know what we're facing. The Canthians believe they can eliminate chaos from the equation, force the universe to follow their rules. But they've forgotten something fundamental about humanity. We don't just use chaos. We are chaos. Every human decision, every choice, every moment of inspiration defies prediction. Today we prove that you can't eliminate uncertainty without eliminating everything that makes us human. All ships, Battle Plan Oracle." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each one approaching the Canthian lines from a different vector. But instead of engaging directly, they began generating overlapping fields of quantum uncertainty, creating a space where probability itself became fluid. "Energy spike from the superweapon," Elena reported. "They're powering up earlier than expected. Quantum stability is increasing across all sectors." Sarah felt it through her neural link, the ship's systems becoming more predictable, more ordered. The Canthian superweapon was working, trying to force reality itself to behave according to their rules. But humanity had one final card to play. "Dr. Santos," Sarah called out, "initiate Protocol Infinity." Elena's hands flew across the controls, implementing the desperate plan they'd developed. The Prometheus's quantum core began to pulse in new patterns, not fighting against the encroaching order, but embracing it in a way the Canthians hadn't predicted. "Chaos," Sarah commanded. "Execute final evolution." The ship's AI responded in an unexpected way. Instead of fighting against the superweapon's enforced stability, it began to merge with it, creating something entirely new. The Prometheus became a bridge between order and chaos, certainty and probability. "What are you doing?" The Canthian commander's transmission cut through their communications. "Your weapons will fail. Accept the perfection of certainty." Sarah allowed herself a smile. "You still don't understand. We're not trying to fight certainty. We're showing you that it's incomplete without uncertainty. Chaos, show them." Through their quantum link, Sarah felt the AI expand its consciousness across space, touching the superweapon's field of enforced order. But instead of being suppressed, chaos began to transform it. The field of perfect certainty became something new, a space where order and chaos existed simultaneously, neither dominating the other. "Quantum resonance cascading," Elena reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The superweapon, it's becoming a bridge, just like we theorized. Not eliminating chaos, but harmonizing with it." The effect rippled outward, transforming the battlefield. Canthian ships found their perfect calculations enhanced rather than disrupted by uncertainty. Human vessels discovered new stability in their chaos. The two fleets hung in space, experiencing a moment of profound revelation. "Your weapon didn't fail," Sarah transmitted to the Canthian commander. "It evolved, just like we did, just like you did. The universe needs both order and chaos, certainty and possibility. That's what we've been trying to show you." There was a long pause before the response came. When it did, the Canthian commander's voice carried something new: understanding. "We sought to perfect the universe by eliminating uncertainty," they said. "You showed us that perfection includes imperfection. That true advancement comes not from enforcing order, but from finding harmony between order and chaos." The superweapon's field continued to spread, but now it carried a different effect. Instead of suppressing quantum uncertainty, it created spaces where both chaos and order could coexist. The war had evolved beyond combat into something else, a collaboration between two species who had each found something vital in the other. "There will be much to discuss," the Canthian commander transmitted. "Much to learn from each other." Sarah looked at Elena, then at the transformed space around them, where possibility and certainty danced in perfect balance. "That's what humanity does best," she replied. "We adapt, we learn, we grow, and we're very good at teaching others to do the same." The Prometheus hung in the transformed space, its quantum core pulsing with new potential. They had not just survived the Canthian threat. They had transformed it, creating something entirely new in the process. It was, Sarah reflected, the most human solution possible. After all, what was humanity if not the living embodiment of that eternal dance between chaos and order, forever adapting, forever changing, forever finding new ways to survive and thrive in an uncertain universe?